questions here. Who will do international pay-per-view instead of you? If you don't know what that question is about, I decided recently, at one point in time, I was going to not work for the UFC anymore. I was going to just do these Fight Companion podcasts that I do with Eddie Bravo and Brendan Schaub and Brian Callen sometimes, and other people sometimes too when those guys are out of town. I did one recently with Joey Diaz. It was one of the best ones ever. But what the Fight Companions are is we just sit around, we watch the fights, and we talk some shit. And I'm not working that way. I just work a little bit too much. Between stand-up comedy, writing stand-up comedy, doing podcasts, researching the guests, researching subjects, researching potential guests, and then life. All the other things that I have to do, whether it's exercise, yoga, forget about family time, all that other stuff is, there's a lot of time that is already accounted for. And then there was the UFC, and I had to figure out what things what things I could cut back on. I wasn't going to cut back on family life. I don't want to cut back on my recreational activities because they keep me sane. For me, I need a bunch of stuff that I'm interested in. I can't just work. Even though work is awesome, I love doing stand-up. I even love doing the UFC. I love it. I love it. I mean, it's a very exciting job, and it's an honor to be able to do. But it's work, and it requires energy, and it requires focus. And I feel like at the end of the day, you only have so much energy and so much focus. And you could be in a situation where you almost are too fortunate, and you have too many things that you enjoy. And that's where I kind of found myself. So that's what I decided. I decided what I'm going to do is I am going to only do North American pay-per-view. That's it. No more Fox shows, no more long international flights, because first of all, those things fucking wreck your body. They wreck me. I would do them, and then for days, like I just got back from Italy. It took me like a week, like at least 4 or 5 days before I felt normal again. It just, your body's all fucked up, you're jet lagged, you're confused, you're exhausted. You feel like you're at 60% all the time. You're always trying to push through, and it's a drag. Enthusiasm and having vitality, like physical vitality and feeling good and feeling healthy, is a big factor in life for me. That's a huge thing. I like feeling good. I like being healthy. When I know something is going to make me feel physically bad and make me feel unhealthy, I try to avoid it as much as possible. There's sometimes I give in, like maybe I'll have a couple of drinks with some friends and we get a little crazy, and then next day I'm like, oh, you dummy. I've done that before, obviously, but even like a hangover, I feel better in a day. Those fucking jet lags, like a flight from Sydney, just knocked over the phone, a flight from Sydney, Australia, that shit takes me a long time to get better from. I don't want to be complaining here. My point being, I try to avoid things that make me feel shitty physically. And unfortunately, a lot of flying makes you feel shitty, and especially flying long hours. So who's going to do the international pay-per-views? I think the way they're doing it now is Dan Hardy, who's a former fighter, and he's been a guest on this podcast. He's a fucking awesome guy, super smart dude, super tuned in, really interesting and intelligent guy. And Dan, I actually trained with Dan for years. Back in the day when Dan used to train at 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu, whenever he was in town, he was getting ready for a fight, he would come to Eddie Bravo's gym and train. I trained with him multiple times. Super nice guy. So Dan Hardy will probably do a lot of them. And then, of course, Brian Stan, who's fantastic, who's also been on this podcast. He'll do a lot of them. And then there's also Kenny Florian, who's also great. He'll do, I don't know how they work that out, like who does what, but those are the ones who are going to do it. So that will be the answer to that, you fucks. I don't know. I mean, I really don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with this new ownership thing either. There's a bunch of new people that took over the UFC now. The UFC is still going to be run by Dana White, which is one of the reasons why I decided to stay. Because, Dana and I are close. We've been good friends for a long time. And one of the things that I was really nervous about was the idea that Dana was going to leave and some suits were going to take over, and then I was going to have meetings with people. They were going to tell me what I could or couldn't say or give me advice on how to do it or any of that stupid shit. I was like, fuck this. That was like, it was answering the question for me. Like, what am I going to cut back in my life? As soon as I heard that they were thinking about selling, I was like, well, that answered it for me. But as time went on and I really thought more and more about it, I really thought that I would miss it, and I don't want to. And also, I don't mean to sound corny, but all the love that I got from people online, it influenced my thinking too. It made me think that I probably should think about sticking it out. So that's the answer to that.